Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Luca and I have read about 62 books this year, and in this video I'm going to be talking about my favourite 10. Two things: it's dark outside, it's December, so I did my very best with the lighting. It's not going to get any better than this. This is what we're going to have to do it with. And also, these books, I did cheat a little bit since I put series together so I don't have to pick one particular book, since I am the most indecisive person on the planet and that's just completely impossible to me. And also, these are in no particular order. I mean, the final four are like my favourites. However, it would take me hours and hours and hours to construct that list in order, so I'm just not going to do any of that. So not really in any particular order, but these are my 10 favourite reads of the year. Starting out with Addicted After All by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is the 5th book in the Addicted series, and I don't know, it's somewhere in the middle of the Addicted / Calloway Sister series. Both of those series are intertwined, and this is the final book in Lily and Lo's point of view, and I really enjoyed this one. Obviously I can't say too much about this book since it's the final book in a series and also right smack in the middle of another one, but I love the ending to Lily and Lo's story, even though it's not really an ending. I love all of these characters, I love this universe, and I think this is actually one of my favourite books from that entire series. What I really enjoyed about this book is Connor and Lo. If you've read the series, you're going to know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, read it. One of my favourite things about this book is the bromance between Connor and Lo. Like, it developed so much in their relationship, and this was, I think, the first book where Connor like really showed and told Lo how much he loved and cared for him, and my heart just like, I think that was maybe my favourite part about this entire book, was not even the bromance, since we got that for like 4 books before this one. It was just the bromance between Connor and Lo and just the entire friendship. This is found family on crack. Like, this is, I don't think any other series has done found family quite like this one, and it was amazing. Next is a young adult mystery series, which is not something I usually read, and I have 3 books here, but I've actually not read this one yet. So these are the first 2 books in the Natural series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, who is also the author of the Inheritance Games series. I think I like this series more than the Inheritance Games, even though I enjoyed that one as well. I read that one last year. But this series is about a group of kids who have these special abilities. Like, they're not supernatural, they just have like special abilities. She and another boy are like natural profilers, so they're much better than anyone in the FBI who was trained to be a profiler. And then you have another boy who can read emotions very well, and then you have someone who can detect lies, and then there's this other girl who's like really good with numbers and statistics and all of that stuff. So they have like these almost supernatural abilities. However, it's not supernatural, they're just really good at these things, and so they're in this program to help the FBI solve cold cases. However, naturally there's a lot going on and lines start to blur, and so they start working on active cases as well, and there's also this whole other storyline, and it's just really fun and fast-paced, and I had a jolly good time reading these books. It's not literature or something, but it was really fun. So this is the first one, The Naturals, and then Killer Instinct is the second book. Then I also have the third one. However, I have not read this one yet. I'm really excited to. I would say that this series is also really good to get you out of a reading slump, since it's very fast-paced, entertaining, and really quick reads. And also, like, the letters on the pages are huge, so you fly through these books. Next, I have a book that I actually read on my Kindle in the beginning of the year, so I don't have the physical copy, but it's called The Mindfuck series by S.T. Abbey. It's relatively well known. It's about a girl who is a serial killer, and she has gone around and killed all of these men that did her wrong in the past, and you figure out why, what's happened, all of that. And her boyfriend, who is an FBI agent who is working on her case, he thinks he's looking for a man, but it's actually his, what, like 5'2" girlfriend. And it was really entertaining, really fast-paced. It's 5 books in one, so you have like one thick physical copy, but it's actually like 5 small books inside, and each of them ends on a cliffhanger. It's really enthralling, you really want to keep reading. It's really entertaining and fast-paced, and I do think the writing could have been better. However, it was so fun and captivating, and just the plot twists were really good. The plot line and everything was phenomenal. The writing could have been better, but you didn't really notice all of that when the plot was that great. So that's that one. Next, I have Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. I don't remember everything about this book. I do, however, remember that I thought it was beautifully written and so just well done. I would say that this is a literary fiction book that follows two people who fall in love. It's not a romance book by any means. It's more of like a literary fiction love story, and I think a few of the books that I have here are kind of like that, and I just really love this one. It follows Reagan and Aldo is kind of like this really smart, misunderstood university professor, and he doesn't really connect with people very well because of the way he thinks and how smart he is. And Reagan, I don't really remember what she does. I think something with art and museum. I don't really remember her title. They meet and they strike up this mutual interest for the other person, and from there they kind of fall in love, and it's really complicated. These are really flawed, complicated characters, and halfway through the book I also kind of like mistrusted the girl, since she was supposed to be taking medicine to help her with like maintaining her mental state, but she stopped taking these medicine, and there was a really clear like difference in her personality to me, and it was all so interesting. It was beautifully written. I didn't read this copy, I read it on my Kindle in the summer, so I got this physical copy later on, and I am so excited to just go through this book and underline and reread a few passages and stuff. This was a book unlike anything I had ever read, so it was really interesting to me. I don't think I gave it 5 stars, but I did really enjoy it, and it was like stuck in my brain for a very long time. Okay, the next one is called One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This one is relatively well known, but not as well known as her other books, and even though I have not read Daisy Jones and the Six and The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo yet, I do think this book deserves more hype because I loved this book. This was 5 stars to me. And it's about two people who have known each other since high school, and they fell in love in high school when they were very young. They have been together for like 9 years, and then 1 year after they get married, the guy disappears when he's on a work trip, so his helicopter goes down and the 4 people on board are presumed dead. And it's kind of the story about how the girl moves on after that and how she falls in love again, and then 2 years later she gets a phone call from her first husband who's like, "I'm still alive, I'm coming home to you," and it was just so beautifully done. Suddenly she had these 2 men she was in love with, and oh my god, this book broke my heart in so many ways. I did not expect how much I was going to cry during this book. I hysterically cried, like hyperventilating, snot, tears streaming down my face. I was not able to talk. I cried so much. I was bawling, like actually bawling. And then I went back and reread all of the things I had underlined because I was like, well, maybe I was just being overdramatic. No, I bawled again. Then I did this 4 more times because I kind of wanted to inflict more pain on myself, apparently. And then I also underlined the book for a friend, so I went through it again. I hysterically cried every single time. So something about this book broke my heart, spoke to me. This was 5 stars, and I can't wait to read other books by Taylor Jenkins Reid. However, I do think like this is going to be my favourite because I loved it so much. The next book is called Talking at Night by Claire Daverley, and this, I saw this once on Instagram, was sold immediately, and I thought this was going to be something completely different than what it ended up being. I thought I was going to read a fun, steamy romance. No, that was not what this was at all. This was kind of like Normal People. This is the longer version of Normal People. Writing style and story-wise, it was so similar. So this book takes place in England, and it follows Will and Rosie, and they meet when they are teenagers. They are complete opposites. She is like a good girl. He is like the notorious bad boy, and kind of everyone has like a wrong idea of him. He is her brother's best friend, sort of. And from the moment they meet, they kind of feel this connection to each other. And then you follow them over the span of years, and they just can't get it together. They just cannot pull their shit together and be with each other. And it was just heartbreaking, frustrating, and it was heartbreakingly realistic to me in the exact same way as Normal People. So if you loved Normal People, you will enjoy this one. It's literally the longer version of that book, so it's even more frustrating and even more miscommunication and even like longer times when the characters are apart, but it was so beautiful. This was also 5 stars to me. If you did not enjoy Normal People, stay away from this book. You will hate it. These characters are flawed, they are really imperfect, and they come close to rekindling what they had like every few years or every year or something, and something always goes wrong, and they just have pretty much the cards stacked against them. However, I still really loved this. It broke my heart. It was great. And I also really, really love the cover. So that's this one. Okay, now we are down to the last 4, and I would say these last ones were my absolute favorites of the year. Like, these have a special place in my heart. They either broke my heart, I just had the best time reading them, or I have not stopped thinking about them since I read the books. The first one is Fourth Wing. I am one of the hundreds of thousands of people who loved this book. This was my first fantasy book, and I have been wanting to branch out to fantasy for a while now. However, I was always scared, and I heard from so many people that this is the perfect book to start reading if you want to branch out to fantasy when you are usually a romance reader. So I did, and I loved every second of this one. I think this was a 6-star book to me. I loved the main character. The girl, Violet Sorrengail, was probably one of my favorite main characters of any book I've ever read. And I thought she was just so cool, so strong. I also love the dragon aspect in this book. I have no idea how I would try to explain this book, like the synopsis of this book, to someone, because when I read the back before I had read the book, I was like, this might as well just be Chinese to me. I have no idea what's going on. However, I have convinced so many people to read this book, and that was with the explanation of it's Hunger Games, Divergent, and Harry Potter mixed into one, and then you add dragons and romance, and then you get this. And every single person I told that to was like, that sounds fantastic. I was like, yes, it's fantastic. I also read Iron Flame. I just lent it to someone, so I don't have it here, and I loved that one as well. Not as much as this one. I loved this book. I think this is the start of my fantasy romance reader era. I loved the dragons. I loved everything about this book. It was 6 stars to me. It broke my heart. I have a video of me bawling over this book. If you are one of the few people who have not been influenced to read this, please do yourself a favor and allow yourself to be influenced. It's fantastic. It's phenomenal. And one of the main reasons why I know I was so completely obsessed with this universe, this book, this just everything about this world, is I made a playlist for it. I think this book and Iron Flame together in one playlist, just with all songs that reminded me of the vibe of this book, just the atmosphere, certain moments, just, I don't know, relationships, just everything together I put in one playlist. And that's when you know I'm really, really obsessed with the book, because I have only made 3 playlists in my life, and that's for this one and the other 2 book series I'm going to talk about in a minute. And so yeah, I don't know what else I can say about this book, except I giggled, kicked my feet, I got mad, I laughed, I cried, I genuinely, so many emotions reading this book, and I was completely immersed in the world, and I think this has started a love for fantasy books. And I also vlogged myself reading this book. I don't know if that video has already gone up or if it's going to go up, no idea. Then we have Lie With Me by Philippe Besson. This was also a literary fiction love story, and I adored this book. After I finished this, I texted so many of my friends being like, you have to read this book. I think this is a must read. I loved it so much. It's only like 140 pages or something, and I don't understand how someone could evoke so many emotions in me in 140 pages. I got attached to these characters, even though there was like, it's not the same as with a romance or like a book series where you know the characters through and through and you've been with them for like a long time, because obviously that's not the case in such a short book. But I felt for these characters, I loved them, I was so emotional at the end. And so this book takes place in France in the 80s, and it's about 2 boys falling in love, but it has a dual timeline where in the present you follow one of the boys who is in a cafe somewhere, and he sees someone who bears a striking resemblance to the first boy he ever fell in love with, and so he starts looking back on that relationship, and then you see them falling in love in their last year of secondary school, high school. And it was heartbreaking because one of them was like openly gay sort of, and the other one who was very much closeted, and that's why it's called Lie With Me. And even the title was just beautiful to me, and also the cover, like, it doesn't say much about the book, but it's really fitting. Like, it fits the book perfectly. It was heartbreaking and it was so beautifully written. And also I remember being on holiday with my family when I read this book, and I remember trailing after my dad in the dark because we were just walking the streets, and my mother was holding my elbow because I was reading while walking. I adored this book, and even though the writer and the story are relatively well known, I don't think many people my age know about this book, even though it's one of the best books I have ever read, so that's that one. Then we only have 2 more book series because I could not choose, and both of these I have read in the beginning of the year, so they have been 6-star reads for me, like, throughout the entire year. And I don't think, aside from Fourth Wing and Lie With Me, who are also up there, nothing has stopped these books for me. The first book series is called Magnolia Parks. Everyone and their mother has heard about these books, has read these books, me included, and I got obsessed with them. I also made a playlist with all songs I related to Magnolia and BJ. If you have not heard of these books, which I'm sure that you have, since they have blown up all over BookTok, TikTok, Instagram, whatever, this is about a group of friends in high society London, so they're all really rich influencer models, like old money vibes, and it's found family, it's toxic relationship, it's miscommunication, but in the best way, because those are usually not tropes I enjoy. However, Jessa Hastings' writing is so beautiful, so lyrical, so like she talks in so many metaphors, and oh, the inner dialogue of all of these characters was just incredible to read, and I giggled, kicked my feet. I got completely obsessed with this entire universe. And the first book and third book are about Magnolia and BJ, and then the second and the fourth book are about Daisy and Christian. Daisy's brother Julian, you also get his point of view in those books, and at first I was like, excuse me sir, what are you doing here? Like, why are we getting your point of view? He ended up being one of my favorite characters in this series, and this was a writing style unlike anything I had ever read before, and so many people did not enjoy this series because they went into this like with their romance reader brain, and that's not what you should do. You should go into this like you're about to read Gossip Girl. It was toxic, it was entertaining, it was beautifully written. Like, I think I underlined half of these books, and they're quite thick. So we have Magnolia Parks, Daisy Hates, Magnolia Parks, The Long Way Home, and Daisy Hates, The Great Undoing. And I think my favourites are the last two and the first one, and I cannot wait for the fifth one to come out, even though I know it's going to be heartbreaking, and I plan on rereading all of these since I read them, I think around April or something, before the new one comes out. And then last but definitely not least is the Boys of Torment series. Oh my god, these books are so heavy. I especially loved Redeeming 6, which is the fourth one, and Keeping 13. These books take place in Ireland in I think 2005 or something, and a very fun aspect of these books was actually that it was based in Ireland, and there's so many Irish curse words and slang and names and everything. It was just so fascinating, and I loved the writing style. You got so incredibly attached to these characters, and please check the trigger warnings, because the first two books follow Johnny Kavanagh and Shannon Lynch, and then the third and the fourth book follow Joey Lynch, and I call her Iafi. No, that's not how you pronounce it. I know you pronounce it Aoife, but I didn't know that, and then I got attached to the name Iafi, so that's what she's called in my head. But Joey is Shannon's brother, and that family deals with a lot of domestic abuse, and it's very graphic, so please do check the trigger warnings before you read these books. And also be prepared and know that these books are slow. Like, it's a slow burn, and you get 2 books for each couple, so it's really a slow burn, but these are romance books the way I want them. They're so worth it. They're really long, but I shit you not, if she had written like 2,000 more pages, I would have read 2,000 more pages happily. Like, I would continue reading the series forever. And I think continuing, every couple only gets 1 book, which I am okay with if it's like a 1,500 page book. Anyway, I don't really know how to explain the plot of these books since it's so much more character driven and relationship driven than plot driven. But like I said, the first 2 books follow a couple, and then the third and fourth book follow a different couple. And I loved the boy from the second couple. I was completely in love with him. I also made a playlist for those books. So that's how obsessed I was. And I read this book in a few days when it first came out, and then I recently reread this book also in like 3.5 days, even though it's like almost 800 pages, and I can guarantee that you become obsessed with these characters because you spend so much time with them. Just, these books are really good, and these series could not be more different, but I don't think I've ever been as invested and immersed in stories and characters and just completely obsessed with both of these universes. So I highly recommend these, and I kid you not, I would do horrendous things if it meant that I was able to read these books for the first time again. Anyway, those were my 10-ish favourite books of the year, and I am so happy that I got to read all of these stories and fall in love with them. And if you have read any of these books, please let me know. I would love to talk about them and hear your opinions. And I think that's it. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked it, and I will hopefully see you in the next one very soon. Goodbye.